Hi folks, welcome to another episode of My Life with Robert Burns. Jim Thompson and Douglas Mackenzie here again to talk to one of our cronies from around the Burns world. Hi Jim.
Hi Douglas, hi everybody.
The next guest, folks, is a long-standing member of Seaton Burns Club. Cronies everywhere. Please welcome Jim Baillie.
Hi Douglas. Hi Jim. How are you doing?
We're doing fine. How are you? How's things through the East Coast?
Not bad. Kind of windy. A gale getting up.
Is it? Oh dear, We've had quite a calm day here.
Never mind.
Never mind. Well, Jim, you said you'd seen a couple of these podcasts, so you know that the first question we ask everybody is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
I'll try, Douglas. I was born in Leith in 1946. Born at home, a tenement top flat, no national health in these days. My dad told me I had to pay the midwife to attend. So thank goodness I brought the national health in 1948. I was a VE Day celebration baby, one of the first baby boomers. My dad told me that once they got the result, came through in May, that the war had ended. But strangely enough, he said they went away a wee holiday a couple of months later because they didn't really believe that the war had finished. Because there's a lot of folk in Leith, they were always hearing the groans of the planes going across, probably on their way for the east, through to your way, you know, Clydebank area and that type of thing. So anyway, he went away a holiday, the first holiday they had for obviously ages because of the war. I think I was a result of that. So there you go. It was a tenement. It was rows of tenements in Homaya Street, and it was a railway property because my dad worked as a shunter driver. He worked in various stations round about the Leith area. And one thing I do remember when I was wee, my mum used to take me maybe a couple of times along to see him, and he'd haul me up on the engine so I could get a wee shot round about the goods yard, you know. So I remember that.
So you get driving the train, did you?
No, you let me blow the whistle. I got to blow the whistle a couple of times, you know. So that's what I liked, you know. But my mother, my dad's name was George. My mother's name was Jane, but she was called Jean to the locals. She was a part-time office worker. She was always baking. Our house, when you opened the front door, it always smelt of fresh scones and bread and cakes and that kind of thing. You know? So I loved that. I was the youngest of three. My brother George, he was 9 years older, and my sister Catherine, she was 11 years older. So there was a big age gap here. Sadly, I'm the only one left of the family. I remember, and I still remember when I was wee, times were hard. There was still the rationing going on. But I was happy, had a happy childhood. I was well fed, well clothed. And the good bit was I always got new stuff because there was no handy-downs because of the age gap. So that was a big advantage. And I played football every minute that I could. Whether it was in the street, whether it was down at Leith Links, I always had a ball in my hand, that's for sure.
Did you play at any level as you got older?
I'll come to that. Although you're saying a better level, I don't know. We'll find it. We'll find it when we come to that. Aye. But I attended 2 primary schools. They were local. Before I went on to Broughton Senior Secondary School. Just to explain a wee bit about that, in Edinburgh these days, that was the early 60s. You had your fee-paying schools, you know, like your George Watsons and your Fetis and you know other ones, Edinburgh Academy, all like that. But you had 5 senior secondary schools, and I was in the catchment area for one of them. So you had to do well in your 11 plus, the qualities as we used to call them, you know what I mean? So if you did well in that, you got an offer to go to Broughton Senior Secondary School, which was, as I explained, was in our catchment area. And the next level was the junior secondary schools. So I was quite happy to go to the nearest junior secondary school, which was Leith Walk. That was only a 2 minutes walk away from where we lived. But my mum and dad, for some reason, thought, oh, this would be good, right? I don't know what they were thinking, whether it was good for me or good for them. I think we'll sign you up for Broughton Senior Secondary School. And you only got a few placements if you did well. You only opened it up to 3 boys and 3 girls. So I was lucky. I finished second in the qualifying exams. So I went there. But there's always a sting in the tail. Broughton Senior Secondary School was like Hogwarts. All the teachers had their gowns, and some of them had their wee hats on it, and some of them were just as daft as the teachers in the Harry Potter. You know what I mean? And always remember that the English, especially, you were not allowed to use any Leith slang. Don't bring that with you into the classroom. You either got a rap over the knuckles, or one of the dusters chucked at you to a distance for the teacher if you couldn't speak proper English. Right?
Oh dear.
It's the classics, right? And English poets like Byron and Keats and Coleridge and things like that. The only time that Burns was mentioned was that you'll never hear any Burns in this classroom. Now, I had 4 or 5 years of that, right? Before I left 16. I had a handful of O-levels, but I didn't want to go on to the A-level because I wanted to get out, I wanted to get working, and I wanted to earn money. So I left at 16. At that time, boys, I mean, you probably know yourself, jobs were plentiful, right? And I used to scan through the Edinburgh Evening News and the Scotsman. You could virtually pick a job that you wanted if you had the qualifications for it. So I sent away applications, and one of the first replies was for a company, McDonald and Muir. They were distillers down at the Queen's Dock in Leith. I don't know if you've drank Glenmorangie or Highland Queen, but that was their 2 main brands. So the wee thing about the Highland Queen, I don't know if you've tasted it. It's quite rare, but it's a beautiful malt.
No, I've not tried it.
Well, you should if you get an opportunity, or you can suss it out, not try it. But it's just a commemoration to Mary Queen of Scots. She landed at the Port of Leith in 1561. So they come out with a centenary one no, it's a centenary, but the mark that, what would that be, 400 years of landing. It was a very nice drink. And that takes me to another situation. The company had a tasting panel, and you were there to judge samples.
Yep.
You had a questionnaire, whether did it have a nice aroma, a nice colour, according to the taste, did it have a nice afterglow, that kind of thing. So you had to mark them. Now, I wasn't involved in that. I was only sick. I'd only turned 17 at this time. That somebody fell ill. So the chancellors in the office said, Jim, would you like to come along to the tasting panel? I said, well, what have I got to do? He says, well, obviously you've got to taste the whiskey, but what do I do? He says, oh, you'll get a sheet. Look, just go along with us. Just mark it 1 to 5. You'll find it. Well, the bit was I never had any lunch that day. So the tasting panel started at 1 o'clock. So in I goes, and they've got the glasses lined up, right? And right, what do we do? All right, go for number 1, right? That's lovely, good, blah blah blah. Number 2, oh, that's all right too. You know what I mean? Blah blah blah. So when you got to number 6, oh, this is excellent. So that was it. But anyway, that day I was away with the fairies. Honestly.
I can sympathise. I worked at Johnny Walker's in Kilmarnock, and I was talking the other day to somebody who'd worked with us, and we were talking about the fact that in the whiskey industry there was a lot of practical jokers. There was a lot of fun, and I just wonder if folks still have the same amount of fun in offices nowadays.
Well, anyway, as I said, I got in the house and my mother was in. She says, "You're in some state, right?" She says, "Wait till your father gets home." There's a cliche, if I ever heard one. But anyway, I got a wee row to him, but no for the drinking, but for no eating something before I drank. He says, "Son, you'll hate to learn to fill your stomach before you get on whiskey." So anyway, that was my last tasting panel. I wasn't invited back again. Anyway, I was at McDonald in New York for a couple of years, and I got a call to play a trial for Aberdeen against St Mirren. So my dad actually took the call and then told me when I got back home. So they arranged everything. The scout came with a taxi, invited my dad through, obviously. Taxi to the station, through to Glasgow, another taxi from Glasgow to the ground. So I was up against Jerry Queen, his name was Jerry Queen. I think he joined Kilmarnock probably the season after. So maybe you, Jim, will maybe recall the guy.
Hi, Jim's a Kilmarnock supporter. Don't ask me questions about Kilmarnock.
Oh well, you can't get everything right. That's But anyway, it was 2-2, right? And he never scored, so I was pleased with the outcome anyway. I was signed after the game because they called me in. We went back to Glasgow. I think it was the George Hotel or something. Maybe got the name of the hotel wrong. Tommy Pearson, manager, and Davey Shaw, the trainer, we went into this wee room. And of course, they discussed with my dad. What is sign your laddie? Ah, right. Because he turns to me, he says, "What do you think?" I says, "What do I think?" Aye. No problem. Give me the papers and I'll sign now. And they needed his signature as well. Right? So that was that. And I spent a year up there. And the worst thing was I was only up there a couple of weeks and we're playing a training game. And my two front teeth ended up in another player's kneecap.
Oh dear.
Because I was coming out with a ball, somebody tripped me up. And his name was Jim Kirkland. He was on the other side in the practice game. He was following up, obviously. So I went down like a lump of lead. His knee came up to meet me. So I went to the dentist and he had to get the two teeth removed to his kneecap. So not a good start.
No.
And a month later, I got a leg fracture. So the lucky white heather wasn't for me that time. So I was out for a wee while before I came back. Anyway, I finished the season and I played against some good players. It was on the reserves, right? But I played against Stevie Chalmers, Celtic, Donald Ford, the Hearts, George McLean and the Rangers. And interesting enough, Bertie Black and Jackie McInally, who of course went on to win the league championship at the end of that season. Now, I was only 18. I was a raw centre half, and all the centre forwards try to put you off your game with the verbals. You know what I mean? The one good thing about playing against Bertie Black is I couldn't understand one word that he said. I believe he came from Lugar, so I think that ties in.
Bertie's, I played against Bertie in the Churches League when he was, well, we called him an old man, but he wasn't, he'd only been about late 30, well, about 40 something. And he could say he'd still play.
Aye. He was a good wee player, a good wee player. Anyway, what happened at that particular time, Tommy Pearson was the manager, as I said, and the first team weren't doing too well. And he resigned in the following February. And that's when Eddie Turnbull came in, Queen's Park, to take over the team then. And at the end of that season, it's well known the massive clear out for Pittodrie, the 17 players. Unfortunately, I was one of them. So that was the end there. But the same scout that got me, the trial, he had connections down south. So he said, "Look, I've got a month's trial for you down at Swindon Town." Of course, I said, "Well, where's that?" He says, "Oh, it's quite far down in England, you know what I mean?" He said, "But it's an opportunity." He said, "They've got a new manager and for some reason they're looking for a young Scottish centre half." He says, "Well, I'm young, I'm a centre half, so that maybe fits the bill." It's fantastic. So anyway, off I went down there for a month's trial. And I was there almost a month was up. And I heard that a couple of English trialists who were also down there, they got signed. So I said, "Well, I wonder what's up." So I went to see the guy and I told him about, "Look, you've signed other players. What's happening with me?" He said, "Oh, we would like you to stay another couple of weeks." So I thought, nah, if you can't make your mind up now, I'm not having it. You know, I'm just as well going back. So I came back with a couple of £100 in my pocket. So it was worth going down. You know what I mean? So that was that. So basically, I fell out with football.
Yeah.
I really did. You know, maybe football fell out with me would probably be nearer the truth. Anyway, so that was me unemployed. So I had to sign on the dole, which is something I'd never done before. So, and these days you got a green card, no a yellow or a red, like a green one. And these cards, you had to take along to the interviews of the various companies that they had made arrangements with. You know, so none of the interviews lasted very long because you always asked the question, you know, and what were your earnings in your previous occupation? And I said, well, I was earning between 20 and £24 a week, maybe more in a good week. He says, "Oh my goodness," he says, we've got nothing here that can match that kind of thing. You know, lucky if we can get half of that. Give me your card. I'll just sign that you're unsuitable. So I'd go back once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, all signed unsuitable, right? So the door were getting maybe just a wee bit cheesed off with me, you know. So I said, look, this is another one. We've got a good job here and we think you'll like it. So they sent me for an interview at Scottish and Newcastle breweries. And so for whiskey to beer, no a bad transition. You know what I mean? So anyway, I had my interview, passed the interview, and I started in the traffic planning, which was at the foot of Holyrood Road.
Yeah.
And it was just opposite the main Abbey Brewery, which is next door to Holyrood House. So there's your neighbours, no bad neighbours to have. So, as I say, the wage scale was quite good. If you stuck in, got your head down, and that I did. And I was there for 26 and a half years.
Good for you.
And I ended up in charge of the trunk transport. They were the long distance drivers that drove to all the depots throughout the UK and Northern Ireland, across there as well. So, but then the brewery at that time they were in transition and wanted to hive out certain parts of the company. So the first one they picked was the distribution and warehouse. So they decided to give it out to Hayes Distribution, which was a big company at that time. So I was offered other jobs in the company parallel to what I was doing, but I thought to myself, I've done a good bit of years here. I was getting a big lump sum, which was very attractive, and a very good pension. So off I went. Thank you very much, and a new adventure. You know what I mean? So I was able, within a couple of weeks, to step into another job, which was a Scottish enterprise company, a non-profit making organisation. They were in Mayfield in Midlothian. So I enjoyed that. Great folk in the company. I enjoyed what I was doing. You were sort of given a free hand to change things and improve things, and that I enjoyed. And I was there for 12 years, before I retired at 60. So that was my goal. My working days are over. So that's what I did.
So that was the opportunity to spend more time with your family and enjoy your family.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well,
that was my plan all along.
Good. Before we move on to talking about your interest in Burns, what about giving some of your family a mention?
Yes, I been married to Sybil for over 53 years now.
Wow.
We met in an Edinburgh nightclub in 1966, just after England won the World Cup. Not a happy time in one way, you know. But we've been together ever since.
Lovely.
So we stay in Port Seton. I've got two fantastic daughters, Dawn and Susan, 5 grandchildren. I've got 4 grandsons. Aidan, he's 24. The twins, Josh and Ethan, they're 17. Kier, the wee one, he's 13. And I've got 1 granddaughter, Megan. She's 14, going on 24.
I bet they keep you busy.
Oh, aye. No problem.
And Ethan's following his granddad's footsteps, I believe.
Ethan has not only followed them, he's surpassed them. Right? He signed with Hibs last year on his 16th birthday. He's played a good few games now in the Scottish under-17. So, and they qualified for the European Championships.
Tremendous.
He's in the development squad of Hibs, and well, we think he's got a bright future.
Good.
His dad also played football.
All right.
Various places, so he's got it in his blood, I think. No.
So he'll be following his dad's advice rather than his granddad.
Well, a bit of both. you try and keep these lads grounded, you know, because we all think there's Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, you know. A lot of hard work involved, so they'll find out about it.
Good. Anyway, let's move on to the hard work of being a stalwart of a Burns club, and I'll get Jim to talk to you a bit about your interest in Robert Burns.
Well, Jim, the first question is always the same. How did you get started with Burns?
That's a good question. Very late, Jim. I didn't start anything with Burns until 1996. Now, 1986, I was president of Port Seton Bowling Club, and a few of the members came to me to put forward a motion that they should start a Burns supper to have it in the hall. So we discussed it, and it was passed at committee level. So as soon as it was passed, we went away and registered. So we're now the Seton Burns Club in 67. So that's how it started. From then on, I did wee bits and pieces. I used to write my own poems, mainly about the club. So if there was to our own club or to the lasses, I would always do that in poetry, my own poetry. That was my way around it in the early days. So I started going to the Burns suppers then. First one was in 1987. And obviously we've been going since. But in 1996, you see, how would you fancy in the mortal memory? No, really. No, no, really, because I knew a bit about them. I didn't really know a lot of the content to do it in immortal memory. But I had a year, so I just got stuck in and read up as much as I could. And I did my immortal memory, and it was on the line of comparison with Elvis Presley. I don't know if you've ever heard one like that, but I was making similar points. You know, that he virtually had a quick career where Burns was at his peak, and I think it was probably 1985, 1986, where if it was Elvis, he could have released 3 LPs of his greatest hits. You know what I mean? So that was my theme anyway. So when I finished, I got a standing ovation. Now, maybe it was because I finished, because I went on for 45 minutes. So I think the applause was for a sigh of relief. But I remember some of the old Burns guys, they came up and said, "Jim, you were brilliant, son." And I really mean that, he says, but cut it down to 25 minutes.
And that was probably even without mentioning Burns doing the playing in his blue suede shoes.
So, they must have thought I was going to do another immortal memory. You know? As far as I was concerned, that was it. But after that, I think it's true to say that, you know, when you did it, you got a wee bit rush of adrenaline, you know, because I didn't expect anything from it. I did it because they asked me to do it. I said, well, that's it, that's my turn. But after it was finished, you got that wee buzz that wanted you to carry on and maybe look into something else. So there was one of the members, Jock Cunningham. He was also a member of the Airs Club, which you've probably heard of. You know, it's a well-respected club, an old club through in the bands, Preston bands. And he says, you should start learning some poems, you see, because you can talk, right? And people listen to you when you talk. I says, oh, is that right, Joe? Yeah. He said, what we'll do, he says, you go away and learn a few poems, right? And you can come along and you can recite them in front of me and I'll help you with them, right? So you go away and just learn a couple of poems. So I went away and learned a couple of poems. And the couple that I learned was Tam O'Shanter and Epistle to Davey. So a month later, I went along to his house and recited in front of him, and he helped me with everything. You know, how to present a poem, how to stress certain points, change in tempo, all things like that. And so I went through that. And then the second month, I'd learned another 2 poems for him. So I came along, recited them in front of him. Jim, just finished there, right? We'll just wrap it up. I can't teach you any more. He says, you're bloody better than me. He says, so you're on your own, off you go, right? And he says, I'll get you, right, you're doing this poem at the Airs, right, next year. Right, so that was my first booking.
dropped in at the deep end.
Well, yeah, you could say so. But I got through and it went down well, and it's really just snowballed for there.
So what was the first poem you read at the Earls? Which one?
It was Tam O'Shanter.
Tam O'Shanter.
And the bit was, we used to have harmonies in our club on a Thursday night, where guys from all the brother clubs round about the area would come along and do their wee thing, whether it was music, a song, playing the guitar, poetry. It didn't have to be Burns, it could be other guys that wrote poetry. And there was a Richard Carroll, and he was a mainstay of the Earts Burns Club at that time. And he says, Jim, I hear you're doing the Tam O'Shanter at the Earts. He says, why don't you come and join us as a member? So he invited me to become a member of the Earts. So that's the only two clubs I'm members, the Seaton Burns Club and the Earts.
Jim, going back to you learning these first two poems in a month, I mean, they're pretty hefty poems to learn in such a short period of time. What technique did you use for learning?
One verse, say it back, two verses, say them back,
My goodness.
three verses, say them back. Got through, I just got through.
Wow, that's tremendous.
It's,
It's
I mean, bearing in mind, by that time, I'd heard Tam O'Shanter a good few times.
Uh-huh.
It was basically on at supper. You know what I mean? So I'll be there sitting at a Burns supper and just sort of miming along with the guy that was doing it.
Yeah.
So that was part of the learning process as well.
It's just, I mean, the two you pick, I mean, I can understand Tam O'Shanter, but Epistle to Davey, I mean, the meter and the way it flows, and I mean, that's not an easy thing to recite. I'm surprised that you're starting with that.
Well, you could say I went into the deep end, and I did. And like everything else, you weren't a very good start, but with Jock's help, as I say, he gave me great advice, how to put it over. And you're talking about Tam O'Shanter, you're talking about the change in tempo and the different scenes and the emphasis, you know what I mean? And but the Epistle to Davey is just a wonderful poem, you know what I mean? And I've done probably about since then 150 suppers.
Wow.
And I would say, well, I think I've done about 25 different poems at these suppers. Now, at a drop of the hat, I can maybe only bring about 5 or 6. Others I've got to revise and have a look over until you get it back in your brain again. But that's what I calculated. I've done, looked back on the programmes at what I'd done.
And you talked about writing your own poems. How many have you written?
Well, probably for each of the sessions in the early years at the bowling club, I probably did maybe about 7 or 8.
Uh-huh.
But as I said, they were all linked into the locals.
Yeah.
They were at the bowling club at that time.
Uh-huh.
I remember I wrote, instead of the Cotters Saturday night, I wrote the Haulers Saturday night. folk that came to the entertainment, because we always used to have a band on, to a house, right? for the bingo ladies that came midweek to the bingo. The bar that Irene runs instead of the star of Robbie Burns. So I used to just look at that and say, how can I wangle that title? So that's what I came up.
Very good. Well, I can see Jim Thompson angling to ask you a question.
You're not getting away with coming on here and saying you're the same 25 points without giving us at least a bit of one, surely.
Well, my own one.
No, well, that Burns, I'm not caring.
I'll take Burns, but I'll give you this one. This was to a house. We were to the table with purses bulging. The housewives are for indulging. The next they're going to look at with a treble book and a single ticket. The snowball is a big attraction and they're all ready for the action. Pen in hand, they wait for eyes down, hoping the checker lays the prize down. The numbers pass, there's 39 off, and nobody's even got a line off. The caller's useless, they're all barking, a waste of time when you earn a marking. An orange and a lemonade they're downing, to try and rid them of their frowning. But had your wish, there's some old fogey who shouted house, but the game's a bogey. If you hadna won, they never doubted, and all gang still as the next yins shout. The oohs and ahs, the hearts beat faster. To lose it now would be a disaster. A roar goes up when there's a winner. There's a stranger, the evil sinner. All the yins who ruined the region has to be her for the Legion.
Very good.
Oh dear. Favourite Burns poem?
I think for me it's got to be Epistle to Davey. I said before, when I learned these poems, I always learned a poem that I liked, that had some meaning. I couldn't troll through and just pick something and I'll try and memorise that. If it didn't mean anything to me, then it wasn't worth learning. So yes, Jim, I would say that would be the favourite.
Have you ever entered any of the competitions like the McElraith or the Break?
Well, Douglas will know that I was in the Lapreek. A funny thing happened the first time. I think it was 2013, Douglas. I think the first time came along, and I learned that Lapreek like nothing on earth. I says nothing go wrong, you know. Give me a spark of nature's fire. That's so I learned that desire. I'll get to the poem. I misses out that verse. Bobby Jess was on the judging panel, and he came up after it, and he says, Jim, he says, we had you doing as winning. He says, but you missed out the most important verse of the poem. I says, that's a verse I've been bloody learning for yonks. So anyway, I was third, and that wasn't bad for missing out a verse. And then the following year, I got picked at the post, Douglas. I was second.
All right.
So I've done no bad.
And there was a lot of folk in the hall that thought you deserved to win at least in one of these occasions.
Aye. I was beaten. I think it was Neil McGilvray or something. Was it?
Aye, it was. That's right.
Aye. He beat me. But fair dues. You know what I mean? It was a good experience. Tom McElraith. That's the regional one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, Edinburgh,
I got third in that, representing it. So always a bridesmaid, never the bride.
At least,
Listen, if you-
at least you tried it. That's the main thing, and you certainly with the Leprake. I can't speak for the other competitions, but for the Leprake, you certainly impressed a lot of people that were there.
Aye. Well, I reckon.
I'm telling you,
maybe-
you did.
Maybe I'm for the Far East. You know what I mean?
I'm saying it's certainly a disability if you're coming for the East to recite Leprake in Ayrshire, particularly in Muirkirk.
Well, that's it. You try and get the lingo right, not only for a start. Where all the locals at second rate, you know what I mean? But, you try your best, you can only. And it was a great cause. It was a great cause, that Leprake, you know.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun while it lasted. So,
Part of what you were involved in, Douglas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the local group are still keeping the Leprake Festival going, but they haven't yet restarted the competition. So we're hoping they might think about restarting it.
Oh well,
that'd be good. So anyway, we've talked about poems and your favourite poem and such like, and we've had a bit of your poetry, but we could maybe do a wee bit of Burns.
Well, the Epistle to Davey.
Oh, perfect. Give us an extract from the Epistle to Davey.
Well, winds fell ben roaming blonde, are the doors with driving snow and hang us through the ingle. Set me down to pass the time and spin a verse or twa rhyme and aimly whistling jingle. While frosty winds blow in the drift, bend to the chimney lug, I grudge a wee the great folks' gift, lives of being in snug. I take less and want less their roomy fireside, but hanker and canker, see their curse. It's no in titles nor in rank, it's no in wealth like linen bank, that peace and rest. It's no in making muckle mair, it's no in books, it's no in lair, my kiss truly blessed. If happiness ain't no our seat and centre in the breast, we may be wise or rich or great, never can be blessed. Nae treasures or pleasures could make us happy lang. The heart eye's the bird eye that makes us right or wrong.
Well, Jim, that absolutely great, and I love the sentiment in that verse at the end of it in particular. Wonderful, thanks very much. Jim, you mentioned being a member of Seaton Burns Club since 1985, I believe it was you were talking about. Tell us about Seaton Burns Club.
Well, as I said, they actually formally they got the registration number in 1986, 1067. I don't know how the numbers work. I don't know if that tells you that you are actually the 1067 Burns Club, or whether it's just a spare number that was available. But that's the number we got. We're helped by a lot of our brother clubs at that time. You're talking about the Mystic, Lodge in Preston Pans, Trinent 25 Club, Ayers. It was all members for them that helped us formulate the Burns Club in the beginning. You know, we're actually saying, well, how do we run a Burns supper? Not just run a Burns supper, but run an effective Burns supper. You know, it wasn't dry. We had good guests. The other things in the Burns supper are just as important, you know, as immortal memory and that kind of thing. You know, lassies and the guy that stands up and does to a rain club. You know, you're talking about things that take 20 minutes a piece. So they gave us all the tips on how to get speakers, because you're starting from scratch. There was only the guys in the bowling club that knew, few of them knew about burns and could do anything really, or had the gumption to go up and do. A lot of them had been members of Burns Club in the past, but had never done anything. No, they were members of Burns Club, but they just went along for the burn suppers. So we found it difficult in the early years because speakers that you could get were already tied up. You know, they were performing all over the place. So we're a bit thin in the ground at the beginning, but a lot of people came to the rescue. And because it was a Thursday night, we had to hold them in the bowling club. You couldn't have it on a Friday or a Saturday. They wouldn't allow you. The bowling club was packed. You know what I mean? That's where they made the money over the bar. So say, you can have a burn supper. It's not going to happen on a Friday or Saturday. So we started off on a Thursday. And that way, we maybe got folk that weren't tied up, that were willing to do a Thursday night session. The problem with that is folk would come on a Thursday night, they had their work the following night. So we did have a harmony, but you know, as soon as it got to final bits and pieces of the supper, people just started drifting away because they had their work. They had their work to go to, you know. So the Thursday wasn't the ideal. But the club was packed. Every burn supper that we had, and we had that up until we moved to the Legion. We moved to the Legion about 7 or 8 years ago, because we couldn't get the folk in that wanted to go to the burn supper. We could only hold about between 80 and 90. Now we have 140 going to it. So the move to the Legion has been a good move.
The club are involved with the schools?
Yes, the local primary, Kenzie Primary. We have put up our own Seaton Burns Club shield for the school. They keep it on site, but we give prizes out to the primary 1 right up to the primary 7. The primary 6 go head to head with the primary 7 when they get their name on the shield, the overall winner. I judge it with Duncan Morgan, another member of ours. We've done it since it started. We've got a good relationship with them, you know.
I was just going to say, you must be one of the only clubs that runs 2 suppers a year.
Yes, we have our, you don't like saying a main supper, but we have our main burn supper. We tie in all the 5 clubs basically in the area. That's including Pussy Nancy's in Edinburgh. We all pick our gates to make sure that we don't clash. So that works out every year. So actually, as you know, well, we never had the supper last year. Cancelled the one for this year. And next year it's going to be on the 4th of February. That's the first legitimate date that we can get.
Yep.
So we are really at the back, right? And the lads and lassies supper that we call it, that always happens 3 weeks after the main supper. So we get about 80 to 90 coming along to that.
Excellent. So you've a busy January, February every year then?
Aye. Well, it's like everything else, you know. There are some suppers go into February.
Aye.
And
it's inevitable nowadays. There's so much demand for speakers.
Well, that's the problem, you know, you can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah. And so much demand for readers as well. So I wonder if we could persuade you to finish off this episode with giving us another couple of verses or something.
It's a poem that Burns wrote after the death of James Cunningham, the Earl of Glencairn. Which the Earl of Glencairn was more than a friend to Burns, because he was the man that exposed Burns to all the A-listers in the capital. Before he went to Edinburgh, Burns was well known in the Ayrshire district. But I think we've got to get credit to James Cunningham for making him Scotland's bard and therefore increasing his popularity. So it was a great blow to Burns when he heard that James Cunningham died in 1791. He wasn't too well and he went away in a sort of European tour. And his last port of call was Lisbon. And by the time he got back, he was a very ill man. And unfortunately, he passed away. So it's no like Burns just to put R.I.P. James, you know. He had to come with an 80-line poem, just as a memory of a great friend. I think it's a really poignant poem, especially with the last 2 years. I mean, I've lost family and friends to COVID, so it really gets to the heart for me, and that's why I enjoy the poem. So I'll try my best and give you the last lines of it. If you bear with me, okay?
Excellent.
And now, my last, best, only friend, fillest an untimely tomb. Accept this tribute from the bard, who brought from fortune's murkest gloom. In poverty's low barren veil, thick mists obscure involved me round. Oft I turned the wistful eye, no ray of fame was to be found. Thou foundest me like the morning sun that melts the fogs in limpid air. Friendless bard and rustic song became alike thy fostering care. Oh, why has worth so short a date, while villains ripen grey with time? Must thou, the noble, generous, great, fall in bold manhood's hardy prime? Why did I live to see that day, a day to me so full of woe? Oh, had I met the mortal shaft, played my benefactor low. The bridegroom may forget the bride was made his wedded wife yestreen. The monarch may forget the crown that on his head an hour has been. The mother may forget the child that smiles so sweetly on her knee. I'll remember thee, Glencairn, and all that thou hast done for me.
Superb.
Excellent. And Jim Baillie, we'll not forget you. And thank you for telling us about your life with Robert Burns. Thank you.
Bless, and Jim, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for asking me.